Hi, I'm 13 News Now. Meteorologist Craig Moeller with this tropical update, and we're going to bring you up to speed on what's going on in the tropics with Hurricane Grace and Tropical Storm Henri. And the 11 o'clock updates are in. Earlier, Hurricane Grace was a tropical storm. With the 11 o'clock update, once again, it is a hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane. It is moving towards the Veracruz state in Mexico, and it's going to move inland later this evening, and eventually it'll wind down, but a big rainmaker for Mexico. I'll show you that track, but for now, we're going to focus on the one that's of more immediate impact to the mid-Atlantic and eventually the northeast U.S., and that is Tropical Storm Henri. Right now, the wind sustained at 65 miles per hour. We've seen gusts up to 75 miles per hour. The movement is northwest at 7 miles per hour. Eventually, it's going to turn more to the north and maybe even a little bit to the northeast. But the Hurricane Center does eventually bring it back into the northeast U.S. I want you to know it's going to be passing by our area here in Hampton Roads and northeast North Carolina. It'll be a couple hundred miles. The center will be offshore. So the real impacts of this, the stronger winds, the intense rainfall, those problems, the roughest seas will be farther offshore. However, it will be kicking some swells up and pushing some of that energy back towards our coast. And we do have an increased risk of rip current. So we'll talk more about that. As you can see, though, it is forecast to come in and make a landfall. Right now, the thinking is that it's going to be somewhere pretty close to Rhode Island. We'll be watching this carefully. There's time this could shift a little farther to the west, and I'll show you why there's that thinking. But the cone of uncertainty does start to broaden out as we go, and that landfall would be sometime during the day on Sunday, most likely. And then as it moves inland, it would be just west of Boston, cutting up through Massachusetts, and eventually turning back off to the northeast and kind of winding down along the Maine coast, and then eventually heading back over towards Halifax, the remnants. What I want to talk to you right now about is the model uncertainty, and we'll take a look at several of the hurricane models. You'll see the tight packing very much in agreement that it's going to turn to the north. We've got a frontal boundary right along the coast. It's kind of acting as a buffer, keeping this thing offshore and east of Virginia Beach and northeast North Carolina. So the models are in pretty good agreement there, but you take a look at what happens once you get out a little bit. Notice several of the models kind of bring it a little more to the west. Now, the official track, again, carries it right up here, which is pretty much in the center of the models, but some of the more recent models kind of curling it a little bit farther to the west and back towards Long Island, a little closer to New York City. Again, that track may be adjusted a little bit as we go over the next couple of days. You definitely want to stay tuned for that. And I will mention, I was looking at some of the different models here. One of them is the WRF, which is really, it's a hurricane-specific model that does a really good job a lot of times. So we'll watch to see whether it actually makes that turn or whether it stays on that more northerly track and goes up towards Rhode Island. At any rate, it does look very likely that this thing will have some real impacts on the northeast U.S. So we'll definitely be concerned about that over the next couple of days, and you'll be hearing a lot more about it. Now, as far as the wind field goes, I wanted to show you the probability of tropical storm force winds, and you can see the legend here. We'll stop it along the way. This is Saturday, 8 p.m., this position right here as a hurricane. Wanted to just show you for Hampton Roads right in Virginia Beach, there's only a 10% chance that we would see tropical storm force winds. The likelihood is that the violent part of the storm is going to be well to the east. So I did want to share that with you for folks wondering maybe along the Outer Banks or the eastern shore. Chances 10, maybe 20% out towards Hatteras, Avon, Little Kinnikeet, some of those communities down south along the Outer Banks. The more likely areas to be impacted with the stronger winds as you get up along, again, Long Island and back up towards Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts. Those areas much more likely to see the tropical storm force based on its projected path and track. You can see the chances go up around 80-90% that they'll be dealing with tropical storm force winds and potentially those hurricane force winds if this does hold together and makes a landfall as a hurricane. So there's still some time for things to change up a little bit. These are the considerations, but this is how Henri is looking at this time as we look Friday morning. And then the wave action, I wanted to share this with you as well. Today we've been seeing, for Friday, we've been seeing waves around 3 feet or so. Occasionally we'll get a little bit bigger wave coming in, but it's been around 3 feet today. There is a high threat of rip currents, but as we go past Saturday, look at this. You can see those lighter blue colors starting to develop there near our coast. So we're talking 6 to 7 or 8 feet potential waves and swells as this hurricane passes by. This area well offshore, again, this is where you're getting into the 25 to 30, even 40-foot seas, potentially near that center of the hurricane and on that right front quadrant as it's moving to the north. You see that right there. Again, for Hampton Roads, still 6-7 foot waves coming in. That would be pretty epic for surfers. They love that. Unfortunately, for recreational swimmers, that can be really dangerous. And again, with that high threat of rip currents, you really have to pay close attention to the lifeguards and listen to instructions out there, as it could get dangerous this weekend at the beaches with that surf. All right, real quick, we'll update everybody on Grace. As I mentioned, it is forecast to continue moving to the west and eventually make another landfall later today and this evening. Here's a concern, though, as it's over this warm Gulf water, it may become a Category 2 hurricane before coming in. We'll have to wait and see. At any rate, it does look like another landfall with the hurricane coming into Veracruz, and we'll be watching that eventually raining out. And there's always that potential for some flash flooding for interior. Look, all of our other social media outlets as well.